Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to the Talking News on Saturday, the 22nd of January 2022. Well, there's an interesting start to the Talking News. It is today, 22/1/22. Being an accountant by trade, I do actually really enjoy numbers, so patterns like that do interest me. Anyway, back to the society news. This week we reopened all of the activities again after we had held back due to the increase in COVID cases on the island. It was lovely to see everybody back last week, and we look forward to welcoming new people each week. Susan is busy looking at alternative activities for later in the year, so if you do have any ideas, don't hesitate to get in touch with us and we can hopefully pull something together. Having member input is so important to the charity to understand and continue to understand what people need and want. We did our survey last year where we asked everybody how we could help them, and we use this information to open new services and activities. But of course, this feedback is only good if it is current. So please never hesitate to get in touch if there's something you think we can help with. So please, everybody, stay safe and enjoy these crisp winter mornings. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight.
This is Dan reading an article from the Island Echo. The end is in sight. Boris announces scrapping of face masks and other restrictions. Islanders will no longer have to wear face masks or work from home as of next Thursday, and the requirement to self-isolate could be dropped in less than 10 weeks' time, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced. With Omicron proving not to be as serious as first feared, the government has decided to take a massive step forward in returning to normal life. It has been confirmed that not only will the requirement to wear face masks be lifted from next week, the 26th of January, but so will the need to work from home, paving the way for employees to head back to the office. The controversial vaccine passport scheme will also be dropped. School children will no longer have to wear masks in classrooms from Thursday the 20th, and they will be scrapped entirely in schools and everywhere else from the 26th. The end of the pandemic and restricted life appears to be in sight, as Boris Johnson has strongly suggested that the legal requirement to self-isolate if you test positive for COVID-19 will cease to exist from the 24th of March, with a possibility that the key date could be brought forward. It means that life can return to normal without staffing disruptions, continuous testings, and the fear of COVID. The Prime Minister has said, "The Cabinet concluded that because of the extraordinary booster campaign, together with the way the public has responded to the Plan B measures, we can return to Plan A in England and allow Plan B regulations to expire." Brits are still being asked to consider using face coverings in cramped or crowded spaces, but there will be no legally enforced requirements to do so, although it remains to be seen if businesses and organisations will make up their own rules. Further news around restrictions on care home visits, which will be eased further, is expected in the coming days. There has been no word on the requirement to wear face masks within medical settings, though. Currently, St Mary's Hospital requires visitors and patients to wear masks and provide a negative lateral flow test. A staggering 90.7% of the UK's population aged 12 plus are now vaccinated against COVID-19 with one dose, 83.4% with 2 doses, and 63.6% with 3 doses.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Tributes paid to local lad tragically killed in crash at Whippingham. Tributes have been paid to 20-year-old Owen Bartlett and 20-year-old Taylor Antwist, who died in a fatal road collision at Whippingham last Tuesday. Emergency services were called to Whippingham Road, the main road in and out of East Cowes, at just before 13:10 on Tuesday afternoon, following reports of a serious collision near the junction with Ulverston Road. Sadly, despite the efforts of everyone involved, the occupants of a Honda Civic, now known to be Owen from Seaview Road, Cowes, and Taylor from Old Road, East Cowes, were pronounced dead at the scene. The driver of a Toyota van, a man in his 40s from Newport, escaped with minor injuries. The road remained closed for around 7 hours as specialist teams from the mainland-based Collision Investigation Unit investigated the circumstances of the devastating crash. Paying tribute to Taylor, his family have said, "Our son and brother Taylor was the best. He was loving, caring and kind. We are so lucky to have had him for 20 years. He has left a hole in our lives that can never be filled. Our hearts go out to Owen's family, who must be as heartbroken as we are." Owen's family have also paid tribute. They've said, "Owen was the most amazing, kind, gentle, funny boy. We are lucky to have had him in our lives, and we will miss him every day for the rest of ours." It is understood that the modified Honda Civic EJ9 belonging to Owen Bartlett was travelling towards East Cowes at the time of the collision, when the driver, losing control and crashing side-on into the oncoming van. Hampshire Constabulary continue to investigate the circumstances of the collision and remain keen to hear from any witnesses. Did you witness the collision or the moments beforehand? Do you have dash cam footage of the incident? Anyone with information is asked to contact police on 101, quoting Operation Hostel. Alternatively, you can submit information via www.hampshire.police.uk/2UA/cel-us-about-existing-case-report.
This is an article from the Island Echo read by Sue. Jules has pulled her last whippy. Popular ice cream van won't return for the 2022 season. Jules Ice's ice cream van, known for its distinctive pink theme and delicious ice cream, will not be returning for the 2022 season, as the proprietors have officially retired from pulling 99s. For the past 10 years, Fred and Jules Turner have kept the island refreshed with their array of wonderful ice creams, be that at special events such as weddings, the local car boot, or one of the many door-to-door rounds. Whether it was an after-school or weekend treat, for us it was always Friday afternoon. Jules Ices never failed to deliver. Talking to social media this week, the couple have explained that due to a decline in Fred's health, they had decided to hang up their cones and retire from the ice cream business. Fred and Jules plan to enjoy more time together, creating a new chapter and new memories. Jules has said, "Over the last 10 years we have met the most amazing people and cannot believe how wonderful all our customers are. We truly, from the bottom of our hearts, cannot thank you all enough for your continued support throughout the years. We have so many beautiful memories of our time in the ice cream business, and watching the little ones grow into young adults has been amazing, especially when they still come and ask for my usual. We will hopefully see many of you across the island at some point when we are out enjoying ourselves. But watch out, Fred's getting a scooter, so we might need to watch our ankles." The business has recently been up for sale for £99,000.
This is Michael reading an article from Island Echo. Esplade's one-way system to be reverted and Sandown High Street closed for the next 6 weeks. The closure of the High Street and a number of temporary traffic lights in the area is causing delays for motorists in Sandown this week. High Street is to remain closed for around the next 6 weeks to allow for the installation of fibre optic cables from Wight Fibre. At the same time, 4-way temporary traffic lights are in operation at the end of Avenue Road for fibre works, with a 2-way set just around the corner on Culver Parade for waterworks. From next Monday, the 24th, until around 14th of February, the one-way system along the Esplanade will be reversed so that vehicles can travel from Culver Parade / Avenue Road down to the Esplanade and along to Pier Street to join Beachfield Road, avoiding the closure on the High Street. Part of Pier Street will be closed off, meaning access to the pier and revertment will be via the north end of the Esplanade.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. Man facing deportation found with forged resident permit. Magistrates have fined a man who was found in possession of a fake resident permit whilst being searched at Newport Police Station. Anthony Kouamba, 40, of Whitlaw Road in Southampton, was arrested and booked into custody on unrelated matters on the 2nd of January this year. Liz Miller, prosecuting, explained to the court that officers located the immigration pass in Kouamba's wallet during a search of his possessions. The card stated that he had indefinite leave until 2029. However, when police searched the national computer, it was flagged up that he was actually facing deportation. The Home Office was contacted and confirmed that the pass was in fact a forgery. The 40-year-old's immigration status expired in 2014. Kouamba was interviewed and he admitted that he knew the permit was a fake. He appeared in court Tuesday and pleaded guilty at the first opportunity. Defending, Mr. Osborne said that his client had purchased the forgery because he was embarrassed at being stopped in the street when he was with his family, his wife and 2 children, and being asked for his ID. The court heard that Kouamba is a carer for his wife, who has mental health issues. The family are in receipt of benefits as their sole income. Magistrates fined Anthony Kouamba £120 and ordered him to pay £85 costs with a £34 surcharge.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Glass bottles are back. Islanders can now get Bridlesford Guernsey milk in glass. Bridlesford Farm has announced that its popular Guernsey milk is now available in glass bottles, in what has been dubbed another environmental win for the Isle of Wight. Everyone knows that milk always tastes better out of glass, but since the demise of the milkman, it has been hard to come by. Now islanders are able to purchase glass bottles filled with fresh milk from Bridlesford's own pedigree Guernsey cow herd, located just outside Wootton. As well as being available to buy at Bridlesford Farm Shop, the glass bottles can be picked up at Norris Family Stores in Knighton or delivered to your doorstep through Island Dairy Service. In July last year, Four Winds Dairy suddenly closed, leaving customers in shock. And it came just 8 months after Milk and More ceased their operation on the Isle of Wight.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Holiday apartment plans for fire-ravaged hotel outbuildings in Sandown. Fire-ravaged derelict outbuildings behind the former Grand Hotel in Sandown could soon be bulldozed. Permission is being sought to demolish the old holiday apartments to make way for 4 new replacements. The 4 buildings, which have sat derelict for a number of years, are situated at the rear of the hotel. In recent years, the site has been hit by fire. Earlier this month, more than 20 firefighters were called out. A similar fire also happened in the same location back in October 2021. As part of the development, Isle of Wight Hotels Limited is also asking to put associated parking and landscaping in place. The proposed buildings are set to be constructed in a style and with materials of Art Deco era appearance. Plans were first submitted in July 2021, but have since been revised. There was concern that the buildings were connected to the historic Operation Pluto, which saw World War II fuel pipelines laid across the country to Sandown Bay. However, a heritage statement confirms the buildings are in no way linked. It says proposals would be of benefit to this important tourist area.
This is Michael reading from Island Echo. £1.33 million shortfall in funding for island pupils with special educational needs. As the budget for island schools is set for the next year, worries about funding needs for special education pupils continues. Despite the government giving the Isle of Wight Council more than £3.6 million additional funding for schools for the year beginning this April, there could still be a funding gap of £1.33 million for special educational needs or disabilities, SEND, pupils. Through the school's funding formula, the Isle of Wight Council has been able to identify just how much will be spent on education given to schools or early years providers. In 2021/22, the Council received £104,198,000 from the Department for Education, which has now increased to £107,855,000 for 2022/23. Once divided into the special funding allocations, however, a significant gap in SEND funding has been identified. A reason for the shortfall, the Council says, is that the funding formula does not fully account for the island's higher SEND demand. To meet the funding shortfall, it has been agreed through the local schools forum for 0.5% of the main schools fund, approximately £210,555, to be transferred to help the SEND funding difficulties. The remaining 1.12 million gap will have to be found through savings. The Council says it will continue to review the provision throughout the year, taking account of recent and upcoming changes. Some of those changes include additional special schools places and new resources within mainstream schools to avoid the use of specialist, online and mainland provision placements where appropriate. One crucial hope the Council is relying on is a government SEND review, this to be published later this year and expected to have an impact on funding methods. Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Member for Children's Education, said at Thursday's Cabinet meeting the authority would be looking closely at the review's outcome to see how it may help. Councillor Andre said, however, the island was not alone in having the funding shortfall. Cabinet papers say the Department for Education is undertaking conversations with local authorities about their deficits, but the Isle of Wight has not yet met that threshold.
This is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio read by Sue. 11 Isle of Wight burglaries reported during police festive crackdown. A police operation targeting burglars across the Isle of Wight and Hampshire has led to a number of arrests. Hampshire Constabulary launched an operational focus to banish burglary in December, in a bid to tackle crime over the festive period. Officers from the dedicated Operation Hawk teams worked with colleagues from neighbourhood policing, response and patrol, and other specialist resources across the force to develop intelligence, prevent burglaries from taking place, and maximise the forensic potential where crimes had been committed. The campaign, known as Operation Banish, included crime prevention, messaging and encouragement to the public to report suspicious activity that could be linked to burglary. Between November the 29th and December the 31st, 2021, there were 2 reports of sheds and garages being broken into, and 9 residential burglary reports made to police on the Isle of Wight. Police attended all of these reports, but formal action was only taken in relation to 1 residential burglary offence. Meanwhile, during the same period, a total of 304 residential burglaries were reported to police across mainland Hampshire, 92 of which were in Southampton. A further 277 break-ins to sheds and garages were also reported. 66 of these were in the New Forest. The proactive work undertaken towards Operation Banish over the same period led to a total of 55 people arrested in relation to 112 offences, 16 of whom faced formal action being taken, such as charges. Attendance to 567 of the 592 reports, with 246, or 43%, being attended within an hour or less due to the grading of the call received. A total of 120 incidents were attended in Southampton and 77 in Portsmouth. Forensic opportunities were identified at 92 burglaries when specialist officers attended. Inquiries are ongoing in these investigations to identify further suspects as results from these forensic opportunities continue to be obtained. A total of 153 social media posts relating to burglary arrests, charges, crime prevention and appeals were issued between the start of overt activity on the 6th of December and the 31st of December across neighbourhood policing Facebook and Twitter accounts. The combined reach of these posts was 2,057. 118 people. Chief Inspector Marcus Cater, who led the Operation Banish activity, said, "We understand how distressing burglary can be for victims. It's not simply a case of valuables being stolen, but the emotional impact of this and the effect it can have on people's feeling safe in their own home. We provide support to victims as part of our response to burglary. But this is why it's so important that people report suspicious activity to us in the first place, as it can help us to prevent offending before it has even happened. Our neighbourhood teams have been building a comprehensive picture of what's been happening in our communities, and this really helped us to target Operation Banish activity. The figures speak for themselves. We've made some significant arrests as part of this focus on burglary and are working hard with forensic opportunities that have prevented themselves to secure further evidence and convictions where possible. Traditionally, burglary reports increase around Christmas, with darker evenings and people buying valuables as presents. I'm pleased that teams from across the force have tackled this issue so confidently and provided an excellent level of service to our communities. We'll continue to take the same approach where we can, regardless of the time of year, to tackle and prevent acquisitive crime across Hampshire and on the Isle of Wight. Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones said, "Targeted action by the constabulary is having a positive impact across a number of areas. I am particularly pleased to see strong results in Operation Banish, which has seen a focus on those individuals that are considered at high risk of committing burglary. When comparing data for December 2019 to December 2021, Operation Banish contributed to a 7.8% reduction, 45 fewer in 2021, in reported residential burglaries in 4 weeks. Burglary is one of those crimes that you have told me matter to you most. The impact of theft, in particular burglary, can cause significant distress to victims. The invasion of your privacy can lasting effects. Protecting victims and catching the criminals that commit these crimes will remain a high priority. You can also help to protect your home and property by following some simple steps. Lock all windows and doors. Remember to double lock UPVC doors by lifting the handle and turning the key. Remove keys from the window and door lock and keep in a safe place out of reach and sight from the letterbox or windows. Remove valuables from view of ground floor windows. Register your property for free on www.immobilize.com. Ensure side and back gates are locked to prevent access to the rear of the property. Also make sure sheds and garages are locked with reliable and robust locks to deter any potential burglars. Choose a product which is tested and certified by Sold Secure and secured by design to the police preferred specification. Do not leave ladders and garden tools in your garden. Lock them away in your shed. Improve natural surveillance to the front of your property by trimming hedges. Consider installing an intruder alarm system by contacting an approved contactor who is a member of the National Security Inspectorate and Security Systems and Alarms Inspection Board. A house that appears occupied is less likely to be targeted by burglars. Installing light switch timers inside the house can help make it appear occupied. Likewise, dusk to dawn or sensitive lighting to the front and rear of your home can help deter potential thieves. For info on how to protect your home, visit www.hampshire.police.uk/crime-prevention/protect-home-crime/. Have you seen anything suspicious in your area, especially now that the nights have drawn in? You can report suspicious behaviour here. www.hampshire.police.uk/SOH/seen-or-heard.
This is Den reading an article from Island Echo. 20 relocatable homes set to be purchased by council to help island's homeless families. In one of the first steps to tackling the island's housing crisis, the Isle of Wight Council has thrown its weight behind modular relocatable houses. In a proposal unanimously supported by the Cabinet last Thursday, the Council will look for 20 two-bed homes to provide housing for families in the most need. The Council's Housing Needs team have so far identified 200 island families in urgent need of housing and at risk of homelessness. Councillor Ian Stevens, Cabinet Member for Housing, said the problem was not diminishing, and while the houses were not permanent, they were stepping stones for those in danger of homelessness. He said, "A lot of the private sector has moved away from renting. We need to get things back on track. We are turning this ship around and pushing for this. It is imperative we get people out of temporary accommodation and move them along the housing chain. We have got to deliver." Cabinet members echoed the sentiment that this would help bring a partial solution to the housing crisis and was something that could be brought forward in the short term before more can be done. The units being suggested will be able to be moved around, although it is thought they will be placed in Newport first. The units have a 60-year lifespan and will have affordable rents and costs to best support families in need. Subject to funding approval at full council meeting next month and a business case to borrow the money, it is hoped the houses can be installed as soon as possible.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Large number of trees to be felled on the Isle of Wight. A large number of trees on the Isle of Wight will be cut down due to fungal disease, the National Trust has said. The tree felling will only take place in high-risk zones where infected trees pose a risk to public safety, according to the charity. It will mean temporary closure of some rights of way and a road diversion next month, February. Ash dieback, caused by a fungus called Hymenocephalus fraxineus disease, causes ash trees to slowly die, drop limbs or branches, collapse or fall. Robin Lang, National Trust Isle of Wight countryside manager, said, "On the Isle of Wight we care for hundreds of hectares of woodland. Ash trees are a common feature in these woods, as well as in the wider landscape. Sadly, ash dieback is now present in all the woodlands we manage on the island. Over the spring and summer, our ranger team assessed and monitored the health of the ash trees on land that we manage. As a result of these surveys, we have identified a large number of trees across the portfolio that pose a risk to public safety and unfortunately are now in urgent need of felling. Not all affected ash trees will be felled. Wherever it's safe to do so, the National Trust will be leaving both standing and fallen deadwood so that wildlife can benefit." Robin Lang said the felling will only take place in high-risk zones where infected trees pose a risk to public safety. This includes those that are along public highways, rights-of-way, well-used paths, permissive routes, and near residential areas and car parks. In some cases, it may appear that we are removing what look like healthy trees, but ash trees have to be felled before they have suffered 50% dieback in the canopy, otherwise the whole tree can suddenly fail and become too dangerous to fell. Despite the tragic loss of trees, we'll be seizing the opportunity to increase the biodiversity in areas hardest hit. Where we've removed dying ash trees, we'll leave most areas to naturally regenerate as woodland, or in the case of Tennyson Down, using the clearance as an opportunity to restore rare chalk grassland where the soil type is suitable. The work will be done this winter by specialist contractors with equipment that will get the job done as efficiently as possible to cause minimum disruption. The plan is to start in February 2022. There will be signage at our affected countryside places and updates on National Trust Isle of Wight Twitter and Facebook pages, and on the National Trust Isle of Wight website www.nationaltrust.org.uk/Isle of Wight. Restricted access and diversions. There may be temporary road closures and restricted access along some routes and pathways during the works. Where this is the case, the National Trust will ensure that temporary diversions are in place to keep residents, contractors and visitors safe. Where the felling is next to public footpaths and bridleways, the north side of Tennyson Down and the bridleway from Cowleys to Luckham Down, public rights of way will be closed for the duration of the work for safety reasons, and where possible a path diversion will be arranged. These closures are likely to last just over a week each. The work in detail. At the Tennyson Down site, trees will be felled in a strip up to 35 metres wide to ensure the public right-of-way. Footpath T24 from Highdown Pit Car Park to Moons Hill Quarry is safe to use afterwards. The footpath will be closed for up to 7 days from the 21st of February. Large machinery will be used to enable efficient processing of timber in just a few days. In places, a level track will be excavated for safe passage of machinery. Some sycamore will be felled as well, and after felling, the National Trust will be reverting the area to open chalk grassland habitats by scraping off some areas to bring the chalk nearer the surface and give rare chalk grassland plants a better chance of becoming established. This is one way of turning round the loss of ash trees to become a nature conservation opportunity, albeit a different habitat. However, it is one for which the Site of Special Scientific Interest, SSSI, can be designated. Wood will be stacked near to the path and extracted at a later date when ground conditions allow. Bridleway SS9A from Cowleys to Luckham Down will be closed for 5 days from the 7th of February while felling is taking place. The tree felling will be done by a tracked machine positioned in the field to the south of the bridleway. The machine will have sufficient reach to fell and process the timber without having to drive onto the 8th bridleway itself. Where the felling is adjacent to a public highway, Luckham Copse and Walters Copse Newtown, our contractors is applying for official traffic management measures. The A3055 between Ventnor and Shanklin at Luckham Copse will be closed for about a week from the 14th of February with diversions in place. The contractor's method statements mean that they will need the whole width of the highway to safely and efficiently position machinery and process the timber. Access for residents affected by the closures will be via the diversions. The road at Newtown will have traffic management, traffic lights or stop-go boards in place while felling is taking place. In Luckham Copse, a temporary trackway will be excavated on the steeper slopes to allow safe passage of machinery. After the felling, the ground will be reinstated and the natural regeneration of woodland will be encouraged. Other smaller areas of felling in Ventnor and at St Helens will just have traffic management in place for the time when felling is taking place.
This is Trina reading an article from Island Echo. Isle of Wight road races delayed until 2023, confirmed organisers. The much anticipated Isle of Wight road races motorcycle event, which was due to take place in April, has now been pushed back until 2023 due to a lack of action by the Isle of Wight Council. It is said that the delay is due to unresolved issues with the Motor Race Order, MRO. This is the permission needed to close public roads for motorsport and is essential for the event to go ahead. The MRO is acquired through the Isle of Wight Council. Previously, an Act of Parliament was required for motorsport to take place on the public highway, but the law was changed in recent years. Event promoter James Kay has said, "We have reluctantly accepted that the Isle of Wight road races now can't go ahead on our planned dates this year. Our motor race order application was submitted on time to the Isle of Wight Council on the 19th of October 2021, but has not yet been determined. We understand that there are some technical concerns, But this is out of our control, and the clock has run down. In a statement to the promoter, the council has said that it is not yet satisfied that the application has been duly made in accordance with the relevant legislation. However, the ACU, the governing body of the motorcycle racing in England, has confirmed that it issued all the relevant paperwork, including the correct permit, as part of the Isle of Wight's application. The team behind Isle of Wight road races are professionals in their own field, with many of them involved in the iconic Isle of Man TT. The IWRI team say they will be looking firstly for ways to understand and resolve the problem which the Isle of Wight Council has highlighted, before negotiating new dates with the international road racing calendar. It was expected that the Isle of Wight road races would bring in the region of £30 million of direct investment to the island, with much of its income shared directly amongst local businesses. James adds, "We would like to thank all the Isle of Wight road race fans, and in particular the island-based motorcycle clubs and the Facebook supporters group for their continued enthusiasm and encouragement, especially those who have already looked to book travel and accommodation for April. We have received an enormous amount of positivity from across the whole island, including many residents, landowners and businesses based in and around the circuit in Bryston, Chale and Shorewell. We look forward to securing new dates for the Isle of Wight road races as soon as possible." An Isle of Wight Council spokesman has said, "The Council has been awaiting further information from the Auto Cycle Union, ACU, the governing body for motorbike races, in order to progress the application, but this was not received. This has meant that, as per the relevant legislation, the motor race application was not considered to be duly made and could not be considered by the Council. Further, it is unfortunate that the application was submitted on or near the latest possible date to meet statutory requirements, which left no allowance for changes to the application documentation." It was announced in July 2020 that a major motorcycle race would be heading to the island in October 2021. However, the event was then postponed until 2022, before things changed dramatically, with diamond races disappearing. Just a month later, the Isle of Wight road races appeared from the ashes.
Hello, this is an article from Island Echo, read by Sue. Caught for ride man who scratched neighbours' 5 vehicles in out of character act. A 58-year-old ride man who randomly scratched 5 of his neighbours' vehicles during the middle of the night, causing over £3,500 worth of damage, has been handed a conditional discharge and ordered to pay full compensation. Stephen Gibbons of Great Preston Road in Ryde appeared before the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday, charged with 3 counts of criminal damage totalling £3,553. Liz Miller, prosecuting, told the court that at 02:20 hours on the 18th of September last year, CCTV footage captured a man with a dog causing damage to a motorhome and 4 cars in the vicinity of Elm Close. A male, now known to be Gibbons, was seen on camera reaching into his pocket and pulling an unknown object out before scratching it down the side of the 5 vehicles. The victims, who are all related, were soon able to work out that it was one of their neighbours. The matter was reported to the police and Gibbons was interviewed, during which he made full admissions. Defending, Oscar Vincent said that his client could not think of why he did the act, but that he has attended the Isle of Wight festival in the day's period and consumed an unusual amount of alcohol. Mr Vincent made it clear to the bench that Gibbons had offered to pay for repair works on the vehicles during his interview with the police. Magistrates, who described the incident as out of character, handed down a 24-month conditional discharge with an order to pay £3,553 compensation, £85 costs and a £22 surcharge.
Yeah, good morning, it's Paul reading the County Press today.
And accompanied by Lynn. Morning.
Okay, right, I'm going to start with the week's society news. The swimming group at Medina is held every Monday. The cost is £5 for swimming. Transport is available if required. Swimming is between 1:30 and 2:30pm. If you would like to join, please call the office on 522205 for more details. We are fortunate to have use of the whole pool, so there is plenty of space for new members. Coffee and chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House, 10am to 11:30am. Only £1 for cake and coffee. Please come along for a chat, and members of staff will be there for any assistance with equipment and information. Our Mix and Mingle group is held every Thursday at Millbrook House. Transport is available if required. For more details, please call the office. Our monthly striders will restart next Friday, the 28th of January. If you would like to join this active group who walk once a month for an enjoyable stride between 4 and 6 miles, followed by a pub lunch, please call the office for more details. The cost is £3 plus transport if required. Please note lunch is extra. Next week the stride is around Bryston and surrounding area. Please remember our God's Hill Coffee Morning will restart next week on Tuesday the 1st of February, held at the Old Smithy, God's Hill, between 10:30 and 11:45am. Pop along and enjoy a coffee and chat. Please remember, if you are feeling unwell or have a temperature, do not attend any activity at Millbrook House. We want to protect both staff, volunteers and fellow members.
Right, and now we'll start off with some letters. And the first one is from Dan Bloomer, who comes from Ryde, and it's entitled Brits Love Boris. Boris Johnson told you exactly what he was. It was clearly laid out in his teacher's report while at Eton, and subsequently reinforced by numerous jobs he's been sacked from for lying. His cheating love life was also laid bare with his tech lessons, provided by pole dancer Jennifer Arcuri. He then creates a government in his own image, and we all pretend to be shocked? Really? Do me a favour. Most Brits secretly admire and would love to be like Boris, so let's not be hypocrites, and instead just enjoy the party, and the party that likes to party.
A dog fouling problem from Chris Offra at Brading. I am writing as a result of reading the information by Isle of Wight Council of a cross-party group of councillors to consider fly tipping, litter and related problems, as well as understanding from recent media coverage that no penalties have been issued for fly tipping. This is a recent experience of the current lack of enforcement by the Isle of Wight Council of dog fouling. At the beginning of August 2021, CCTV footage was obtained of two individuals allowing their dogs to foul in Brading and not clearing up afterwards. In the case of one of the individuals, it happened several times in the same place. The identity of the two people concerned was quickly ascertained locally, and the information and CCTV footage forwarded to Isle of Wight Council Environmental Health Department. The officer dealing commented on the good quality of the footage. There was no problem with the CCTV evidence obtained, which would certainly have been admissible in a court and provide proof of guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. Weeks went by, which became months. To this day, no result of any action has been notified, and if it would appear there hasn't been any such action. Eventually, a complaint was made to Brading's Isle of Wight councillor, Jonathan Bacon. He was also a cabinet member for Environment, Heritage and Waste Management. As well as exchange of emails, two meetings were held with him, which were also attended by the Brading Town Clerk, one of which was attended by the Mayor of Brading. It transpires that for some years parish councillors have been obliged by Isle of Wight Environmental Health Department to pay a levy, in Brading's case over £600 per annum, if they wanted dog warden attention and enforcement action. It's understood that this levy was never sanctioned by councillors but unilaterally applied by officers. After several years of paying a levy, inquiry was made by Brading Town Council regarding historical enforcement. It transpired there had been no enforcement action at all and just one visit by the dog warden to the parish in all that time. Not unsurprisingly, the parish council took the decision to save the precept payer some money and decline to pay the levy in future. Hence the complete lack of any enforcement action, including a recent case mentioned, despite there being high quality CCTV evidence. This isn't a matter that needs endless political negotiations. It just needs the Isle of Wight Environmental Health Department to get their finger out and do the job which council taxpayers as well as precept payers are paying them to do.
And now a letter from Stephen Cockett from Ventnor. Water quality, high cost of improvements. Bringing the UK's wastewater infrastructure to a standard that's acceptable, rivers and seas not adversely affected, is the work of at least a decade of improvements with a high price tag. Based upon the findings of the government-commissioned Storm Overflows Evidence Project, that investment can reasonably be assumed to be in the region of £50 to £150 billion. A middle figure, £100 billion, is the equivalent of £3,840 per household. The current average water bill is £396, £155 of which, according to a recently published study, is profits and debt servicing. The government can borrow at uniquely low and stable rates. The current Public Work Loan Board loans are at 1.9% fixed over 25 years. At that rate, the above investment could be paid for at a total cost per household of £194 per annum. The borrowing rates from the commercial sector can be guessed to be around 5%. Variable would mean the same loan would cost households £272 per annum. Therefore, if the water companies remain in the current ownership and borrowing modes, then the average bill would need to rise from £396 to £668. Whereas, if the services were returned to the public sector and profits were removed and existing debts were refinanced at government rates, then foreseeably the required investments could be made with a bill rise to £435, just £39 a year higher than we currently pay. Based upon the above two things, become apparent. Firstly, that it makes sense for the government to pay for any upgrades using their own borrowing capabilities rather than continuing to outsource investment to financiers. Secondly, the potential cost burden on households is significant, especially when so many have already extremely constrained budgets in a time of rising costs, so there is a case for paying these upgrades from general taxation. And if that were to happen, then it would be quite incompatible with profits going out the other way. This might all be back-of-the-envelope stuff, and the local situation might not compare perfectly with the national picture, but there is a crystal clear case for this assessment to be properly done, and then we can be closer to answering why is it that the UK has the world's only privatised water supplier.
This is a letter from Ben Houghton at Newport. Historic Award for Bravery. I was reading your piece about John Peacock and the ship collision with HMS Gladiator in 1908. That was in the County Press the 14th of January. He was awarded a Royal Humane Society commendation on vellum. I have an identical RHS certificate which was awarded to my father, George Houghton, on November the 14th, 1939. This was for saving the lives of a family on holiday in Aberystwyth whose boat had overturned in the bay. The family consisted of a mother, 4 children aged 16, 14, 12 and 9, and a maid. My father's friend Norman Phelps was also in the boat with my father, both engaged in mackerel fishing and assisted in the rescue. They were both awarded the RHS Felham. My father and his friend received a large silver cigarette box from the rescued family, inscribed Aberystwyth 1939, as a way of thanking them for their bravery. I have my father's box here at home in Newport. Inside is a letter from the rescued family and newspaper cuttings from Nottingham Evening Post. The rescue itself had no connection to our island, but I thought you might find it interesting anyway.
And now a letter from D. Francis from Northwood saying roads unit needed. Superintendent Pegler, the new police commander on the Isle of Wight, has outlined his policing priorities in the county press and elsewhere. His published comments did not even mention roads policing. This is unfortunate when in the same week it was revealed that according to the metric used in figures from the House of Commons Library, the roads here have a rate of killed and seriously injured 2.7 times higher than the rest of the country, excepting London. Contributory to this miserable situation is the decision made in 2015 by Hampshire Constabulary to change the model of roads policing on the island. And curiously, just the Isle of Wight, resulting in not a single roads policing specialist being stationed here since 2017. This model, whereby armed response were also roads police, was always a fudge. Demonstrably so, as the actual roads policing unit are still brought across for operations occasionally, and while here hoover up dozens of offenders who otherwise have free rein. At the same time as our roads police were permanently transferred, Hampshire and Thames Valley Police formed a joint operations unit which includes roads policing. While accepting that budget cuts can lead to tough spending decisions, it is surely legitimate to question why roads policing was downgraded here, while links to a force which has responsibility for Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire were strengthened. The call now from the public and political office holders is for the reinstatement of a dedicated roads policing unit on the island. With new funding moving the constabulary out of the shadow of austerity, there seems no reason why the blunder of 2015 cannot be corrected, and the serious issues of road safety and vehicle-related offending addressed properly and consistently.
Royal Mail or Royal Fail? This is a letter from Liam Purdy in Ryde. Since Christmas we have had 2 deliveries of mail on Belvedere Street, Ryde. Having seen our previous post operative, he advised he no longer did the route, but he knew of no problems as the frame was empty each day. We received a bundle on December the 29th, January the 13th, and then none until January the 18th. In order to test our speedy postal system, we posted a letter first class on January the 10th at Ryde Post Office and only received it on January the 18th, despite it having only travelled approximately half a mile. This was only received so quickly because I'm sure we also had a special delivery item that had to be delivered by a certain time that day. Other post operatives I have met say we should get alternate deliveries of parcels and mail each day. So what is going on? The sorting office does not answer the phone. Customer services are more than an hour's waiting time. All I want is our post, please.
And now a call for politicians to stand down from Tony Pendleton from Newport. It's hard to second-guess this government and this Prime Minister, even when the odds are stacking up against him, continuing. But if he's to stand down for the good of the country, then I would expect our MP, Bob Seeley, guilty of the same behaviour, to do the same.
No physios. This is from Marion Rummers in Bembridge. There appears to be a drastic shortage of NHS physiotherapists here. At present, only one for the whole of the island. I find this most appalling. Perhaps someone has an answer.
And now, Memories, a time capsule of island scenes preserved by a group of enthusiasts. And this is written by Anne Grant. In this digital age of throwaway images, how many captured today on phones and cameras will still be around in decades to come? How many will become a historical collection of current events and locality? One group of enthusiasts has done great work in preserving the island of yesteryear. By restoring old cine film footage and digitising it, Image Films has archived numerous time frames from all corners of the Wight. Watch any of their DVDs and long-forgotten memories will be transported back to life. John Bartlett became involved in this project through his passion for cinema, and in particular Jungle Book, which he saw 64 times. His interest went beyond that of the average film fan. He kept a yearly scrapbook of cinema tickets, posters, programmes, newspaper clippings and other ephemera. 5 years later, Jungle Book was released by Disney on Super 8mm cine film. John bought this movie innovation from Nicholson's photographic shop on Ryde Esplanade, together with a film projector. This sparked his lifelong obsession with collecting, for posterity, local amateur filmmakers' cine photography. He teamed up with another film enthusiast to start showing films at the local community theatre. Starting with 16mm film on Monday nights, they hoped to replace the lost cinemas. They persuaded the local authority to buy and install a new £20,000 35mm projector in the theatre to show new releases, including The English Patient, Mrs. Brown, Titanic and Batman. 2 special screenings of Jungle Book were put on for 800 Cub Scouts in October 1993. John's film-watching passion moved on to making films in the 1970s. Image Films was formed by a trio of cine enthusiasts. The name derived from their initials, Ian, Mike and John Enterprises. They made their own Super 8mm films and even tried animation. Sean Woodnut of Nicholson's offered John a shop assistant job with a special mission to promote the film side of the business. He jumped at the chance. Sean was the stepson of the previous shop owner, Frank Mellenby, a keen amateur movie maker. Mr. Mellenby used 16mm colour film in the 1940s, 50s and 60s to capture a unique record of island life. Being in the trade, he had access to all the latest cine equipment for making his films. One of the Isle of Wight Cine Club competitions for Best Holiday Film was named after him, the Mellenby Trophy. Frank was instrumental in making one of the first tourist films featuring the island, Sunshine Isle, commissioned by the then Isle of Wight Publicity Council. It was produced by Frank and 2 other club members and narrated by Alia Liddell.
Mr. Mellenby died in 1973 and his film gathered dust for the next 30 years. In 1985, the Cine Club put on a show of early Isle of Wight film footage to celebrate the club's 40th anniversary. This became the foundation of Island Film Archive. The show proved to be an almost embarrassing success. Staged at Newport's Apollo Theatre, it was introduced by the celebrated presenter of Archive programme, John Huntley. A series of 33 memorable shows followed, entitled An Evening of Nostalgia, all presented by John Huntley, staged in the Medina Theatre, Newport. The films included many from the Huntley Archives, largest archive of transport films in the world. Following the formation of the Isle of Wight Film Archive, John Bartlett remembered the Mellenby collection and asked Sean Woodnut if he could view these, with the ambition to restore and preserve this priceless footage. The result of this enterprise can be seen today on Image Films DVDs. In 1987, the Isle of Wight Film Archive trustees broadened the collection of films that were emerging from various sources. The island at that time did not have a historical film body at all. This had now been rectified, and films had to be restored from old, often volatile 35mm nitrate stock, as well as 9.5mm, 8mm and 16mm film footage. For the Isle of Wight Film Archive to continue to develop, the revenue from film shows became increasingly essential. Preserving old film is very expensive. In later years, John Huntley was unable to continue his appearances on the island, and sadly he passed away in 2003. The archive has about 100 hours of island films in the collection. Most of it will eventually be available on DVD. All transfer and studio work produced with the latest computer technology is carried out on the island. All design work, both in the film production and packaging, is done by two enthusiastic trustees, John Bartlett and Bob Ennis. This helps keep costs down and means more money is available for future film preservation. DVDs can be purchased from their website. Short intro footage can be viewed online for free. It gives an overview of content and makes fascinating, nostalgic viewing. Trains, boats, planes, rockets, carnivals, market days and so much more at www.imagefilms.net. If you have any old film footage stored away, get in touch with Image Films. Some of it may be worth preserving for future generations to see when we've all become history.
Water, water everywhere. But this is my view from Alan Marriott, the Isle of Wight County Press editor. And there's a picture at the top of a big poster saying, "Say no to sewage." The ferry firms must love southern water, for they have certainly drawn the critics' fire away from their favourite targets over the past 12 months. It's not just on the island either. The utility giant has taken the art of the corporate Cockett to Champions League levels. And closer to home, the placing of Gurnard at the top, or bottom, of the sewage dumping must have been the envy of cows who took the runners-up spot as awarded by Surfers Against Sewage. So it had to be a good thing when a fortnight ago the county press broke the story that Southern Water were to put the island at the forefront of its efforts to massively reduce the chances of our towns being renamed Poondwell or Pewport. Under the Pathfinder scheme, the water firm is promising a huge raft of eco-friendly ideas to reduce by 80% the amount of effluent in our seas and rivers. And the news got even better this week when the head of the Pathfinder task force, couple of points there in corporate terminology bingo, I think that's meant to say lingo, Nick Mills told me that despite the original timescale being to get this in place by 2030, the island could expect to see real differences within 2 to 3 years. So, can our wild swimmers look forward to having the reassurance they will be swimming in nice clean water any time soon? Only time will tell. What is fascinating to me is that it came in a week when the dear old Beeb is told it can't raise its licence fee because Joe Public is, and no argument there, under a big financial squeeze post-pandemic. It's just a shame that the government's financial concern doesn't extend to giving the utility companies, like Southern Water, the message that the general populace shouldn't be expected to pay their 90 million fines out of their bills, while the shareholders still pick up their dividends. Anti-Sewage Outfall campaigner Stephen Cockett, who the county press asked for his views as part of our coverage last week, had an interesting take on the issue. He said Southern Water's ownership structure is a mishmash of investment funds. The big player with a 51% stake is former Wightlink owner, Sydney-based Macquarie Group, who have recently bought in for £1 billion. Looking back, the business has been passed around several times through various companies, all taking a slice of our money in return for a management that looks the other way when raw sewage is pumped into our waters. So we have gotten a law-breaking yet essential for life water company, owned by foreign financiers, that is saddled with around £5 billion of debt to other financiers, a debt that we will clearly be paying a pretty penny for in interest, that creams off staggering amounts of profit to private hands. Those hundreds of millions of ours should be invested in infrastructure, not foreign investment funds, balance sheets and shareholder dividends. For us, the citizens, what on earth is the point of this privatised financial merry-go-round if not even the essential product, clean water, is being provided? If anyone can answer that, I would be most grateful. And if no one can, then let's get this back in public hands and stop these people taking the pee for the next 32 years. I can but echo his views.
There's a second article on my view by Malcolm Mime, COVID and Floaty. It's time to move on. We learned this week that COVID restrictions are to be scrapped by the end of the month, and we will be returning to normality. Thankfully, our MP Bob Seeley, along with 125 other MPs, voted against the introduction of vaccine passports, and although those 126 votes weren't enough to stop the measure getting passed, it was enough to show Boris Johnson and his government that people have had enough of restrictions. With recent renovations at numerous parties were apparently taking place in 10 Downing Street, while the public lived in fear of getting COVID, Johnson and Co have lost all credibility, and so too, to a certain extent, has COVID. It is all very well the scientists and politicians telling us we must remain on our guard, but after 2 years of restrictions and living in fear, it is time for everyone to just start living life again rather than merely existing. Yes, there has been deaths, lots of them, but with vaccinations now available to those who want them, and with COVID having weakened, it's time to move on without constant fear hanging over us. I contracted the Omicron virus over Christmas, and it really was nothing other than a heavy cold. Certainly not as bad as flu. I will never know if the vaccinations helped to restrict the severity, but I am pleased with my choice to have had them. Although I am also 100% behind those who have chosen not to have them, it must always remain a freedom of choice, especially as we now know that being vaccinated doesn't prevent you from passing on the virus. So the unvaccinated are no different to those of us who choose to have the jabs. I have found it abhorrent to see the hateful attitude of the large number of vaccinated people towards the unvaccinated. It is completely illogical to see them as a danger. The treatment of Novak Djokovic by the Australian authorities was outrageous. Why would a fit athlete full of antibodies choose to be vaccinated, especially when there are reports of vaccines causing heart inflammation and other side effects? If I had been in my 30s or younger, I too wouldn't have chosen to be vaccinated, and I personally find it disturbing to see people wanting to vaccinate children. Has everyone lost sight of the fact that the average age from deaths from COVID is 82? Despite having had the vaccines, I have refused to enter any venue that insists on a vaccine passport, even as the production of a lateral flow test has been an alternative. If everyone entering the venue had to take a test, then I'll be fine with that, but to single out just the unvaccinated to take a test is discrimination pure and simple. So I have stood in solidarity with the unvaccinated. Vaccine passports should never have been voted in. Thankfully, they will soon be gone. In other news, the mediation for the floating bridge that Councillor Philip Jordan promised will be concluded in November still hasn't started yet, and in fact has been put back to March. The recent government review gave the vessel an amber rating regarding whether or not it's fit for purpose, so the council might get some money back for the change being insufficient. but can't see them getting any more than £500,000, and it certainly won't be enough to fund a new one. I still maintain that a vehicular crossing should be scrapped completely and a foot passenger launch used instead. There can be no excuse for this saga to carry on past 2022.
And now we move on to some of the things that are going to be shown up at Medina Theatre. On Thursday the 27th of January at 7:30, they're going to show The Circus of Horrors. Tickets are £27 or £24, and a group offer is available. And on Saturday the 5th of March at 7:30, tickets £21, a show called Someone Like You, and it's the Adele Songbook. And on the 11th of March, Friday the 11th of March at 7:30, tickets £23, Seriously Collins, the Phil Collins tribute. And then on the 12th of March, Saturday the 12th of March at 7:30, tickets £25. I think it's not a tribute band, it's the real Herman's Hermits. So that should be quite interesting. They all look, in the picture, rather old, but there we go. And so if you wanted to book for any of those, the telephone number is 01983 823 884.
Yeah, getting away from entertainment, this is a little article here our editor thought might be interesting. New fraud hotline stops bank scams. This is from Sally Ash, Fair Trading Officer, Isle of Wight Council. IWAS would like to tell you about a new fraud hotline that will let you check whether a call purporting to be from your bank is genuine. Stop Scams, UK and the Global Cyber Alliance have launched a 159 pilot scheme. Figures show that fraud involving impersonation of the police or banks shot up by 129% in 2021. 159 offers a practical way whether to check if the caller is your bank or a scammer. Remember that 159 will never call you, but you can call 19159 if someone contacts you saying they're from your bank, even if they are not suspicious. You receive a call asking you to transfer money or make a payment, even if it seems genuine. You receive a call about a financial matter and it seems suspicious. Not all banks have signed up yet, so when you first call, you will be taken through a list of the participating banks, and you can press the relevant number on your keypad. You will then be put through to your bank. Please remember to use another phone or wait 30 minutes as scammers have the technology to stay on the line, intercept your call and pretend to be your bank. Have a safe and happy new year. Reporting a scam. For advice on scams, call Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline 0808 250 5050. To report a scam call, Action Fraud 0300 123 2040. And one more entertainment piece of news for you. The National Youth Theatre, NYT, has announced audition open days across the UK. A free workshop giving young people audition service and introducing them to the world of theatre making. Not only will the audition open days be available across the UK, including Southampton, but also online. The Open Day Workshop explores self-taping for auditions, ideal for those who have not experienced self-taping before or who want to further explore their approach. Following the workshop, there will be a question and answer session, during which participants can learn from NYT associate artists and ambassadors about forthcoming opportunities and what to expect as a member. NYT Auditions Open Days are ideal for young people aged 13 to 25 who are interested in taking part in auditions to join the charity this year. The charities that may include some of the world's most celebrated theatrical and performing talents, such as Helen Mirren, Daniel Craig, Daniel Day-Lewis, Lenny James, Ed Sheeran, Colin Firth and Hugh Bonneville. The online session via Zoom will be held on Saturday, February 26th.
London's first hybrid river ferry is being built at East Cowes Shipyard. The UK's first hybrid high-speed passenger ferry will launch on the River Thames later this year, and it is being built on the island. New additions to Thames Clippers fleet are being constructed at Wight Shipyard in East Cowes and are expected to start service in autumn and the spring. The Uber boat will use batteries on its route between Tower Bridge and Battersea Power Station piers. It will recharge offshore using biofueled power outside central London. Sean Collins, co-founder and CEO of Uber Boat by Thames Clippers, said, "This development in technology has enabled us to take the first major steps to meet our future environmental vision. After the challenges of the last 2 years that COVID has set upon businesses, in particular in the transport sector, I'm extremely excited to be increasing our capacity to meet the demands of our customers and partners. As a business, we are continuing to embrace the emerging technological advances that will see us continue to develop our fleet and infrastructure, thereby supporting a sustainable future in our industry." Thames Clippers and Wight Shipyard have a long history of working together, with numerous vessels delivered in the last decade.
What's next for Ponderosa site? Is it the end of an era? Former tourist and events hotspot, the Ponderosa Ashi, looks set to be bulldozed if permission to demolish it is granted. Plans have been submitted by Mr. and Mrs. Ben Leal to turn the once much loved holiday and events complex and restaurant into 5 houses and 2 holiday homes. Back in its heyday, the Ponderosa attracted a large number of tourists, but according to planning documents with the appeals of holiday abroad, trade started to decline. The site eventually stopped providing accommodation and instead focused on being a restaurant and events venue, but due to its location situated away from main towns, the site declined. Various attempts to reinvent the restaurant, notably as the Tyrrell, proved unsuccessful. Documents say and the venue's identity was destroyed before becoming financially unviable. In the latest attempt to change the Ponderosa, agent Andrew Wight Planning Consultancy says there is no viable alternative use for the current building, so the plans have been submitted. However, the Isle of Wight Council has rejected residential plans on 3 previous occasions. Since then, however, it is argued the building and site have significantly deteriorated, and the COVID pandemic has not helped the hospitality industry. Planning documents say, given the condition of the building and the vulnerability of the hospitality industry, the building will not be reintroduced as a trading restaurant. Without a meaningful alternative purpose, the site will continue to deteriorate. It is also argued there is a need for housing and, where possible, for it to be delivered on a brownfield site like this one. The 5 houses comprise of 2 and 3 bed dwellings, with the holiday homes having 4 beds each.
Fantastic Finley jumps to it for his furry friends. When 8-year-old Finley Street heard that the donkeys at the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary had lost one of their shelters in the storm, he wanted to help. Although Finley, who has autism, felt sad about the news, he did what he could to help. The ride boy made posters and distributed them to local shops, encouraging them to donate to the donkey sanctuary. But that wasn't enough. He then wanted to do a sponsored jump to raise more money. Finley did 500 consecutive jumps without stopping in 6 minutes. His mum, Sarah, said although it was very cold that day, the jumping kept him warm enough to keep going. To some, that may not seem like a hard task, but to Finn, with his additional needs, it was a challenge that he achieved. Finley raised £272, and last week he handed the money over. He even got some time with the donkeys at feeding time. Sarah said, even though Finley's challenge has ended, there is still plenty of time for anyone to donate direct to the donkey sanctuary if they wish. Finley has forest school teachers who provide his one-to-one education. Sarah said, we are proud of his generous spirit, particularly after overcoming so much in 2021.
Help for disabled passengers. People with reduced mobility will be able to travel with hover travel while work is being done to the Wight Link Fast Cat Terminal in Portsmouth. Wight Link has started a 3-month programme of building works at Portsmouth Harbour, which means passengers must be able to use stairs to board the Fast Cat passenger service to ride. Disability support charity Isle Access has been working with Wight Link to ensure people with mobility issues are not ignored. An arrangement has been made for Fast Cat ticket holders to be able to use their tickets to travel with Hover Travels on its Ride to South Sea route. The alternative arrangements with Hover Travel are available for people who cannot use stairs and not for all passengers. The entire floor of the customer building is being removed, reinforced and replaced as the building stands on stilts above the water. The only options were to close the service down or set up a temporary outdoor route, which involves 2 sets of stairs. Hover Travel's Hover Bus will take reduced mobility passengers free of charge to the Portsmouth Harbour Transport Interchange for onward connections.
The first awake surgery carried out at St Mary's by doctors. St Mary's Hospital has recorded its first awake surgery after a complex shoulder operation was carried out without general anaesthetic. Last year, the Reverend Richard Harding of Yarmouth became the first person to have a successful awake complex shoulder operation with the Isle of Wight NHS Trust. During a routine CT scan, it was discovered that the 79-year-old, who was being treated for cancer, had fractured his upper arm. Without surgery, his mobility and quality of life would have been significantly impacted. Due to Richard's underlying health conditions, neither surgery under a general anaesthetic nor transfer to a mainland hospital for surgery were feasible. Anaesthetist Dr. Maciej Kaminski and surgeon Mr. Daniel Giorgio worked with Richard and collectively agreed to go ahead. The only option was for Richard to be anaesthetised using a combined nerve block, meaning he was awake during his surgery. Dr. Kaminski, who has worked for the Trust for 18 months, specialises in regional anaesthesia techniques which block the pain transmission in nerves. Also known as nerve blocks, these techniques allow patients to be pain-free during the operation without the need for a general anaesthetic. Dr. Kaminski said, there are multiple benefits to using this approach as there are fewer side effects and it provides better pain relief. Patients will experience a quicker recovery time as they will have much less nausea, constipation, confusion and drowsiness post-surgery. After and during the surgery, which took around 3 hours, Richard was fully awake and within 15 minutes was ready to go back to the ward. What made the surgery so unique was the fact that it would normally be performed with a general anaesthetic alternative. To overcome this, 3 different nerve blocks were combined and administered in the anaesthetic team, and this approach had 90% chance of providing adequate anaesthesia. Richard, who was a full-time priest in Devon before retiring to the Isle of Wight 10 years ago, died on Christmas Day. The county press carried his obituary last week. His wife and daughter praised the outcome of the surgery as it enabled him to retain some independence and quality of life.
Pandemic alcohol deaths revealed. Alcohol caused the deaths of dozens of people on the Isle of Wight during the first year of the coronavirus pandemic, figures show. Deaths directly caused by excessive drinking soared by a record 20% across England with 2020, with thousands losing their lives to alcohol consumption. Public Health England data shows 24 people from the Isle of Wight died from alcohol-specific causes last year. That is up from 22 recorded in 2019. The figures suggest 13 in every 100,000 people in England died solely because of alcohol abuse last year. The rate on the Isle of Wight was higher at 16. On the Isle of Wight, 81 people lost their lives either wholly or partially related to alcohol.
A call for help with heating. An island charity has criticised the government and backed TV consumer expert Martin Lewis over the energy bill crisis. The Footprint Trust has for the first time heavily criticised the government over its lack of action over the pending massive energy bill rises. They say consumers on the Isle of Wight will be faced with energy bill rises of up to £600 from April. Martin Lewis, speaking recently on ITV's Good Morning Britain, highlighted the forthcoming price hike, the biggest jump for decades, caused by global wholesale prices increases. The situation has led to more than 20 energy companies going bust. There have been calls for the government to soften the blow for householders by cutting VAT and government-enforced environmental and social obligation costs charged on domestic bills. A Trust spokesperson said, "The government is not to blame for the international crises, but it does have time to act now to prevent thousands of islanders falling into fuel poverty. Hundreds of people here are already turning off the heat and sitting in cold, damp homes. This will turn into thousands next winter unless action is taken now. The government has a number of options, which could include increasing the warm home discount and suspending VAT on energy bills. It could also choose to remove or reduce the green social tariff and to fund such measures out of general taxation. In the meantime, householders need to insulate their homes and replace old, efficient appliances and get into the habit of turning things off. We urge anyone who is concerned to contact us on 82282 for guidance and help."
Praise for police action as antisocial behaviour in Bay Area nipped in bud. Police had to deal with groups of unruly youths in Sandown and Ventnor last Friday evening. 7 officers on foot in Sandown came across a large group of youths aged 14 to 16 causing antisocial behaviour, half of which were handed warnings not to enter the town centre for 48 hours or face arrest, with prosecution at the police's discretion on option. Officers also dispersed a 50-strong group causing the disturbance in Pound Lane in Ventnor town centre. Using these preventative tactics prevented large-scale antisocial behaviour over the weekend, said Sergeant Sharland, leading the South Wight Neighbourhoods policing team. With support, we dispersed the entire group from Ventnor quickly. The public, delighted by the police's first reaction to a survey of what people in the Bay Area want to see tackled, took to Facebook. Debbie Reid said it's good to know there's intensive neighbourhood policing to address antisocial behaviour, while Mags Perry commented, "Well done on a very successful night. I hope you continue to deal with large groups in the same way." Samantha Vincent said, "We're all eternally grateful," while Joy Wood added, "Thank you for keeping us safe." The Policing Priorities Survey identified the public's top 3 priorities for the SWMPT to tackle this year, namely violent crime, drug supply and abuse, and antisocial behaviour, which are on the rise. The survey also identified council taxpayers want to see more officers out on patrol, particularly in Sandown Lake, Shanklin and Ventnor, both on foot and by bicycle. The study even narrowed patrol into specific hotspots.
The rocket engineer and author dies at 88. Derek Mack, who was involved in the Black Knight and Black Arrow rocket programmes, has died aged 88. Born on February the 8th, 1933, at Queen Charlotte's Hospital in Hammersmith, Derrick earned an apprenticeship in his teenage years with Vickers Armstrong, the aircraft makers in Weybridge, where, being a year underage, he began as shop boy in their wind tunnel department. This fortunate turn of events proved pivotal to his entire career, as it set him among a team of research scientists and engineers whose talents and enthusiasm awoke his lifelong attraction to aerospace research and development. 4 years of formal guided weapons training taught him to service electronic flight systems and the related explosives hardware before moving on to assist live firing trials at the Aberporth and Lark Hill missile ranges. Derrick joined Saunders Roe on the island in 1957 for the Black Knight Earth Re-Entry project, where he set up static firing recorders at Highdown. He spent 8 weeks running engine static firings to proof test the Woomera, Australia 5A launch site. On November the 21st, 1964, Derrick married his wife Anne and moved to Norton Green. While working with the British Hovercraft Corporation, BHC, Derrick was honoured by the French government for his work in the French space programme. Derrick had overseen the build of Diamant at Cowes, Bordeaux, and each launch at Cordoue in French Guiana. He travelled to Paris with his family to receive a Diploma of Merit from the President of the French National Centre for Space Studies. Until his arrival, Derrick did not realise he was just one of 6 people in the industry to be honoured. Derrick joined the Falstaff Space Exposure rocket trials, where he was appointed quality controller for all firings. To cover the Falstaff trials, Anne and the family joined him at Woomera Village for 2.5 years before returning to the West Wight. Derrick presided as chief designer at BHC and worked at Westland Aerospace, where he was known by the nickname Danger Mouse. Among his projects were the in-service Wessex helicopters, A330 Airbus composite engine bypass casing, and the Saab 2000 engine nacelle design teams. Retiring early in 1993, he and his wife Anne spent many years travelling and enjoying cruises. Derrick's book, called Black and White Fireworks, and released in September 2018, was a first-hand taste of daily life during his 15-year period at Highdown and Woomera rocket test sites. His family said he was always the life and soul of the party, game for a laugh, and loved sailing. Derrick leaves his wife, son and daughter.
New taxi safety rules approved. There will be more frequent safeguarding tests of cab drivers, while cars used as taxis on the Isle of Wight can be older than before, as long as they are electric. The changes were given the green light by leading Isle of Wight Council Cabinet members last week. Under the new rules, taxi drivers will sit a safeguarding exam every 2 years, including with an aim to identify passengers who are in trouble. The current system has already been required and enhanced DBS since 2016. Training will also include spotting and reporting issues, including trafficking and abuse, and drugs-linked county lines activity. Councillor Ian Stevens, Cabinet Lead for Community Protection, said, "The main aim of the taxi licensing policy is public safety and firming up safeguard training, which already takes place in this policy. These moves will make sure vulnerable and at-risk members of the public continue to be looked after safely, and any concerns raised with the appropriate agency." Under the previous rules, the maximum age of a car when applying for a new licence was 3 years. This has now been extended up to 5 years for electric vehicles.
And now it's time to say goodbye from Lynn.
And goodbye from Paul.
There is no scaffolding news this week. The In Touch programme follows. Drag queens and kings. Like many things in the art and performance sector, there isn't much that blind and visually impaired people haven't been involved in, and drag is no exception. It is thought to have been around in the UK since Shakespearean times, and the first recorded drag queen is thought to have been seen in 1732. It has a long and rich history here in the UK. Today, drag reaches far beyond just drag queens. There are drag kings, performers experimenting with androgyny, celebrity impersonators, and much more. We wanted to find out more about the art form of drag and how visually impaired people go about it. So we spoke to Jake Sawyers, aka drag queen Venetia Blind, and Amelia Landa Cavello, aka drag king Tito Bone. The presenter is Peter Wight and the producer Beth Hemmings.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Rather like sports, there are a few art forms visually impaired people haven't got involved with, and drag, currently enjoying something of a mainstream boom, is no exception. The term drag is thought to be an acronym of dressed resembling a girl. It's thought the term dates back to the 16th and early 17th centuries, during Shakespearean times, when male theatre actors would also play the female roles because women weren't allowed on the stage. A drag queen called Princess Seraphini, whose real name was John Cooper, is reckoned to be the first recognisable drag queen in English history, dating back to 1732. OK, history lesson over, but as you can tell, drag has been around for a long time. Today, it reaches far beyond just drag queens. There are drag kings, club kids, performers exploring androgyny, celebrity impersonations, the list goes on. Admittedly, I didn't understand what many of these terms meant, so I went to learn more from some visually impaired drag performers. I've been talking to Jake Sawyers, aka drag queen Venetia Blind, get it? But first to Amelia Landa Cavallo, who has a drag king persona called Tito Bone. They began by explaining to me a bit more about the types of drag performers that flourish today.
Probably a lot of people have an awareness of things like RuPaul's Drag Race, which is on BBC, and will probably have a decent idea, even if they don't know that they've encountered it, of what a drag queen is. But I think a lot of people assume that drag tends to mean a cisgendered man dressing up as a woman. And it can mean that, but it can also mean a lot of other things. Drag, in its more kind of broad definition, is a performance of gender. Anybody of any gender identity can be a drag performer of any gender identity. So by that, I mean, you can have cisgendered women be drag queens. You can have cisgendered men be drag kings. You can have people who have drag that they wouldn't define as any one type of gender and might be kind of more androgynous, or might be just a really big mashup of all of it. And I think that the UK drag scene, once you go just a little bit underneath what's known on the mainstream kind of avenues of finding it and what you end up finding on TV, we have a really just like a plethora of that type of drag. We have a huge drag queen and drag king scene in the UK. You can get drag performers like me who like to sing and be funny. You can get drag performers who are contemporary dancers or ballet dancers and do these big, beautiful, emotionally kind of moving performances. You can get puppeteers and clowns. You can get it's kind of everywhere.
So what I was going to ask you is, what does drag enable you to do? I mean, what can you do with that you can't do with other performance?
That's a very subjective question, so I would never dare answer that for other drag performers. I have a character that's a drag king, so what I can tell you it's done for me, on a personal level, it's helped me figure out ways to situate myself in my own gender identity. Drag is one of those places where I could go, well, what am I uncomfortable with and what am I comfortable with? It gives you an ability to find skills and things that you maybe are actually quite good at that you didn't know. So as soon as I put myself in a more masculine presenting space, and I could come at it with what I sort of was interpreting as the confidence of male privilege, I found out that I was really funny. And now that I'm really comfortable as my drag king persona, Tito Bone, I'm like, yeah, I can do stand-up. That's fine. I just do it as Tito.
So would I be right to say that it enables you to play games with gender to some extent?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it. And it's also enabled me to celebrate my gender queerness. There's a lot of different flavors of non-binary, and I'm one of those people that will some days feel quite masculine and some days feel quite feminine and some days feel like neither and some days feel like both. And I can do all that as Tito in a way that feels much more liberating and also much more comfortable than I can as Amelia.
But as you said, it's on BBC television now. It's not that long ago that a lot of it was underground.
Yeah, and I would say there's still a lot of it that is underground. You know, if anybody listening is an active fan of things like Drag Race, I mean, it's not presented super accessibly. As far as I know, there's no audio description for it, which is unendingly frustrating. But like, if that's what you're mainly consuming, it is worth you doing some research, because that is one teeny tiny sliver of it. And it is, without getting too into it, it has a lot of problems. There are a lot of issues with who gets to be on those types of platforms and why. There's a whole kind of internal politics around it. That is not to say don't watch the show, but it is worth knowing that drag is much bigger, much fuller, and much richer than that particular show.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit more about what you do specifically. I mean, you are one of the founders of Quiplash, which is an organisation, as it says on your website, that brings together the creative arts and queer disabled people. Give us a sort of overview of what Quiplash do and the sort of thing that it gives you the freedom to do.
Quiplash is, I mean, right now we're calling ourselves a project. We are in the midst of setting up as a proper business, and we're going to set up as a social enterprise of some sort. Our goal was to, and is to, make space and take up space for queer disabled people. I run this with my wife, who's named Al Lander-Cavallo. We both are situated in the disabled and neurodiverse kind of umbrellas, and found that we couldn't find any spaces that would cater for all sides of us. So if we'd go to a queer night, it wasn't accessible for either of us. And if we'd go to disability-led stuff, we'd have to kind of mask bits of our queerness. We could keep waiting for people to make space for us, or we can just do it ourselves. And so we started in 2019 with a show called Untitled Drag. And we got myself and I think 7 other blind and visually impaired queer people together, paired them up with a couple of prominent drag performers on the London drag scene and a couple of access consultants, and there was a sort of trade. So the sighted drag performers learned how to work with blind and visually impaired people and embed things like audio description into their work, and the blind and visually impaired people learned how to do drag. And it went really well. And then from there, we found very quickly that people were interested in what we were doing. And so I, prior to Quiplash, had a background in training people and consulting on access. And so we found it really useful to kind of funnel that thing that Al and I respectively did independently in our own work into Quiplash. So now Quiplash has a training and consulting branch where we can support people to learn how to make their work more accessible. We also do general disability awareness training. And then we also create shows, we create art, we create performances.
For people who've not seen much drag, and certainly not seen you, if people come and watch, what do they see?
So if they're watching me specifically, I always introduce myself as Tito Bone, your average blind, non-binary, bisexual drag king, obviously. I will always do an audio description of myself first and foremost. Everything that I do as Tito has integrated audio description, but I'll describe what I look like and what I'm wearing, which is usually a lot of shiny stuff. And then I will do a variety of different things. So the act that I did for Unsightly Drag, that is often the one that gets most requested, is me singing a love song to my white cane, to Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You.
One of the performers in that show is Jake Sawyers, aka visually impaired drag queen Venetia Blind. First of all, just explain how you got involved in all this.
I met Amelia through Extant. I was
that's the theatre company who are you're sort of under their umbrella to some extent.
Blind and visually impaired led theatre based in London, and we were all paired up with a mentor, someone who's visually impaired, who's already working in the industry, who's already doing it, who's already fabulous. And I was paired with Amelia, and it was match made in heaven. Amelia told me that they were starting Quiplash and they wanted to put on a show featuring blind and visually impaired drag performers, and they asked me to be involved. And I was like, absolutely, because I had just had my drag debut in Cardiff. So it was really coincidental that all happened. It was written in the stars.
Well, let's just get a little flavour of the unsightly drag show that we've been talking about.
Ever since I was a child, I knew that I was gay. It was obvious. I liked dressing up, glitter, Lady Gaga's Born This Way. It was just like really obvious. Tonight is the time for me to dress up. So then why am I so scared?
Because Brexit means Brexit.
I am a drag queen. A drag queen just believes. Hello everyone. My name is Venetia Blind. I am a 6'3" in heels, white Welsh, blind as drag queen. My hair is long, blue, purple. My dress is sequenced purple. My shoes are like leathery red high heels. I'm wearing a pink eye patch, very Gabrielle style. My nails are red, and this is hashtag audio description. I'm a queen.
You moved to Cardiff from, I think, a small town. I mean, did you know much about the drag scene before you went?
I knew nothing about the drag scene, to be quite honest. I grew up in Port Talbot, which is in South Wales, a steelworking town, no queer scene whatsoever. Then I moved to Cardiff in 2017. I'd just started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, the United States version, and thought, wow, this is completely new and is blowing my mind. That's something I would definitely like to try in the future, dressing up, makeup, being funny, you know, who wouldn't want to try that once in their life? And then I moved to Cardiff and discovered the local queer scene there, the drag scene. So I was watching it on TV and then, you know, scratching the surface even more by taking in the local scene and sort of learning the extent of drag and how broad it is, like Amelia said earlier.
So this is the moment I probably need to ask you a bit from my ignorance about RuPaul's Drag Race. Can you just explain a bit about that?
RuPaul's Drag Race is a reality TV competition show. It was started in the United States, I think, in about 2009, somewhere around there. And they go on and they compete to earn the title of the next drag superstar. And there's challenges, there's runway looks, there's talent competitions, and compete to win a big sum of money and, you know, the title. And it's recently been brought to the UK and is now showing off some of the drag scene in the UK. It's a great show, but you definitely need to take it with a pinch of salt. I personally love it, and it's what got me into drag. But it's quite new on the scene, the show is. Drag has been going way before RuPaul's Drag Race.
Right. Quiplash is primarily a visually impaired organisation. I'd just like to know how your drag specifically interacts with your visual impairment.
So over my time, I'm a freelance actor, stand-up comedian, drag queen. And, you know, that doesn't always pay a lot of money. So I got into consulting about visual impairment, which I love, and I think it's really important, but it wasn't really fulfilling me creatively. And I wanted to spread the message about visual awareness. So my drag character, Venetia Blind, sings parody songs about the lived experience, mostly for me, really, just to express myself and how my relationship with my sight impairment. But then people are also learning things while having a good time. I sort of compare it to feeding vegetables to children. You sort of sneak them in there. You don't know the visual awareness training's there, but you leave and you've definitely learned something about what it's like living with not as much sight as everyone else.
That's a good analogy. Just a bit of the practical side. Amelia, drag makeup can be pretty elaborate, I understand. Yeah. Have you had to develop tricks, techniques in order to do that as well as it needs to be done in a full-on performance?
Yeah, the makeup and the aesthetics generally of drag felt like the biggest barriers to me when I started. So my face takes at least an hour to do. I've really made a template. So I've had people say that they're really impressed with how professional my makeup looks. And it is because I kind of do the same thing over and over again.
And do you have enough sight to do that yourself, or do you have to get somebody to help?
It's a mix. So I can see a little bit of it. So one of the reasons I really like bright colors, and probably the reason I do, is because I can see them. And so one of the reasons, other than the fact that I think it looks fabulous, that I have a glitter beard is because it's actually quite forgiving in terms of shape. So I can put it on pretty sloppily and then go back and correct it, or get someone to help me go back and correct it. And then I do the same kind of thing with my eyeshadows, but I just do it with like pink and purple and iridescent colors.
And what about Venetia Blind's makeup? Is that a problem for you, Jake? Or are there other practical challenges?
Yeah, I agree with Amelia. Definitely the makeup is a huge barrier, but also something I've really enjoyed going on a journey with. As a visual impaired person, problem solving really excites me. And, you know, I'm a filmmaker and a photographer. I love to do things that people necessarily don't think visually impaired people can do. And makeup was my most recent one I'm trying to conquer. I can't see anything out of my left eye. I'm completely blind in my left eye with a little bit in my right eye. So I thought, well, Venetia will just wear a diamonded eye patch. I use my phone's magnifier to really zoom in to see things. I've got a little light that I use. It's just all those little things that are really, really fun to master and get on with.
Amelia, can I just ask you what's happened since COVID? I mean, are you back out performing?
What has happened since COVID? So we had a definite pause, and I think everybody did. And I think, you know, that was the right thing to do. We started Quiplash in May of 2019, and then the world caught on fire in January 2020, you know, basically. So we hadn't had much time to get our feet. But then what we found as the pandemic continued and started to go longer than everybody thought it was going to go was that people that we had been working with in the before times kept coming to us and going like, well, hey, you do consulting, right? And then like we did Unsightly Drag and Friends, a kind of an iteration of Unsightly Drag. We did it again as a digital piece for Bloomsbury in 2020, which again, Jake was part of as Venetia. It was beautiful. And we found that people were kind of coming to us going, what you did in 2019 was really interesting. And now we all have to stop and think about how we can do better. Would you help us with that? So we found ourselves last year in particular, gaining a lot of consulting clients in particular. And then through that, we're starting to find ourselves gaining creative clients.
But does that mean you're consulting more than you're performing?
On a day-to-day basis at the minute, yes. But a lot of that is really about a number of things. One is that we are never in a rush to rush into any spaces, and building up a performance that has the setup that we want takes time and resources. So we're not going to, for example, perform in a venue that's not wheelchair accessible. We're not going to do anything without at least a sign language interpreter, ideally both captions and a sign language interpreter, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And that takes time. So we're never in a rush. The other thing that we're really hyper aware of is that we know that a lot of people in our own queer disabled community are still having to pretty much isolate, you know, and so we're being very slow about going into physical spaces.
Amelia Landa-Cavallo and Jake Sawyers, thank you both very much indeed. And that's all for today. I should mention there is an upcoming performance of the Unsightly Drag Show. That's part of the Vault Festival under Waterloo Station. It's on February the 4th. And as always, if you have any stories or experiences relating to what you've heard in tonight's programme, you can email in touch, bbc.co.uk, or leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio manager Phil Booth, goodbye.